Welcome to the Mid-Market Edge podcast, where we uncover operational insights for private equity-backed portfolio companies. I'm your host, Kevin Bonfield, and over the last 30 years, I've had the privilege of working with fast-growing entrepreneurial teams, helping them scale, tackle challenges, and seize new opportunities. On this show, we'll talk to industry experts and seasoned leaders who will share practical strategies to drive growth, boost efficiency, and create value in the mid-market. Get ready for an insightful, engaging conversation that dives deep into the real-world issues facing your business.
Well, I want to welcome Charlie Alsmiller today for our conversation. Charlie is a self-described recovering consultant. I'm not sure if that's actually possible, but he's working hard on it. And more recently, he's founded APIWorkx, and Charlie's going to give us a little bit more information on that. But the great news is that Charlie has been working with global teams over the last 30-ish years with Deloitte and PwC, and then more recently with his own company. So first of all, welcome, Charlie.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you. So maybe you can start off by telling me a little bit about APIWorkx and how your global teams connect in with the work that you do.
Sure. So I'll actually start with sort of the entrepreneurial journey, right? And why I chose working with a global team to begin with. So first and foremost, this business was originally started as a bit of a side hustle. I thought, well, okay, this is going to, I'd sold my previous business and I didn't want to hang around in Cancun because I got bored in about 2 days. And I said, I want to start something else, but I don't want it to consume me. I don't want to, be worried about, all of the details of my staff and blah, blah, blah. So that was the mindset I had going into this business. And so what APIWorkx does is we build integrations for e-commerce businesses, usually, accounting integrations, inventory. So if you think about when you hit the buy button on a website, lots of little bots, spring into action and go and allocate inventory and ship products and notify shippers and blah, blah, blah. And our software helps automate all that. So it's turned out to be a really good niche, especially during COVID. And I've been using an offshore team and a global team now across four countries since its founding 5 years ago. So that stacks on top of my other experiences, which we first started using global teams back in the Deloitte days, back in the 90s. So I've been doing this a while, I think. So I started when I was
when you were 6, right? Yes. So tell me, when you started off and you were doing this with Deloitte, what did it feel like working with a global team? What were the differences between then and now?
So at the end of the day, my thought process boils down to sort of 3 factors, right? It's cost, it's productivity, and overhead. And in those days, Deloitte, big firm, big projects, big clients. We had a real sort of cost problem in that the way we ran our business was around utilization against certain metrics. I mean, you're in the services business.
Yeah.
That's why I've got a target rate. I'm targeting X amount of utilization against that. Certainly, realization against that rate and the utilization rates as well. So we had negotiated a pretty big contract with a big customer. I'm not going to say any names, but it was a huge project, $25-30 million, and it was a blended rate. And the problem we had was, so this guy said, okay, we're going to pay you, Mr. Consulting Firm, $150 an hour. And the realization targets for the team that was on it to make it happen were well over 200. So the partners were just not that happy about taking that hit on the realization, but whatever. But we also had a capacity problem. Right. We did not have the tech level of resources needed to do this job. So we started working with one of the large early offshore organizations that since merged into one of the big ones. And the model we came up with was we would bring, we would go to these companies and we say, okay, I want 50 people for a year. And they would go, yes. And the model we worked out is we'd bring 5 or 6 of them over at a time, and they would work hand in hand with us in our office. They would, get our mindset. They would get our the phraseology and just the little parts of cultural and communication that often break in sort of global teams. And I have a funny story about global teams as well. I'll tell you in a minute, but little things really, really do matter. But my first experience literally was we were writing software and these guys are, in their room. We kind of had them away from the main customer. And I would walk in, I guess I was a manager, senior manager or whatever at the time. And so I was responsible for this piece. And I would walk in and I go, hey guys, I need to brainstorm with you about something. And I was like, okay, we need to hit a whiteboard, kind of like consultants do. Can we do this and this and this? And they're all just like, yes, yes, yes.
Just complete silence. Huh?
Complete silence. And this has happened to me multiple times. I'll tell you about that in the Philippines as well. But these were guys from India, super smart and super motivated, but they just sat there like this. Like, I'm not used to that, right? I'm used to guys sort of saying, hey, Charlie, what about this? What about this? What about this? And that's what I was expecting walking into that room. I said, okay. So I stopped. I said, do you guys understand? And I get this funny shaking of the head. And I'm like, what does that mean? So the cultural thing, they're listening and understand. They're trying to understand. And finally, one of the guys got up and said, okay, Mr. Charlie, thank you for that. And he goes, this or this? I said, that. And he goes, and the whole room kind of goes, oh. and then the next guy goes, that or that. And I go, that. Oh, okay. Thank you. And I leave the room. I'm like, can you guys just let me know when you can get something like this together? And I'm thinking like a design or whatever. So I leave the room, walk by a little bit later, and literally they're in there. Papers are flying and just like smoke coming out of this conference room, right? And I'm like, I peek my head in, everybody stops. I'm like, hey guys, everything okay? So I'm like, all right, well, so anyway, next morning I come back, they've prototyped this thing overnight.
Oh, wow.
Right.
So not just a design, but like they've moved forward.
Prototyped a working, it wasn't really working, but it was a user flow, right? And I'm like, okay,
right.
We're onto something here. And if you do the math, right? So we were sort of blending our rates at $150 an hour. These guys are charging us 35. I'm sure those poor guys are, making certainly much, much less than that. But the math really worked in those days, right? And I find this model of essentially labor arbitrage has really been the rule in consulting for 20 years, right? I mean, you're in consulting. I mean, the consulting firms all have these big offshore operations, et cetera, et cetera. So here's the rub, right? In that scenario, we had the best of the best because everybody wanted to work in the US, everybody wanted to work in Deloitte. So the productivity levels were very, very high, right?
Yeah.
The overhead we needed to apply to that was very low. And the cost relative to my target realization number was very low. Okay. Cost, productivity, and overhead. So I thought, well, okay, this is a game changer. And this is also maybe Tim Ferriss came out with 4 Hour Work Week, maybe 5 years later, and he was talking about this. But the mindset really permeated large organizations very, very quickly, right? So you see it from manufacturing, you see it to call centers, you see it in IT support and development, and you've got AP processes now in India, well, not India, but like Romania and all these sort of lower cost countries, right? So, but the problem is that we start to normalize the skill set beyond the top 1%, productivity goes way down. Right. So you have this cost, productivity, overhead equation that sort of has to work together to make it work, start to get strained a bit. Right. So now you've got to apply more resources from your end to make sure that those resources over there are at least as productive as the resources in the US, but you've got an overhead factor on it, and the cost is so low. And and then over time, right, we see the costs go up, productivity leveling out, not because of technology is helping productivity,
right?
The resources are broadening, right? There's more and more resources in these jobs, and so we're moving closer and closer to average.
Yeah, you're just moving. When you started off, you were getting the incredible cohorts, as you were talking about, right?
Yes.
And now it's just more and more. Just so it's the rule of cohorts, right? That you just kind of moved it out of it.
Right. So it's like you can see this with, thinking about, Apple manufacturing iPhones in China. But do you think Apple is getting the best of the best in China? Absolutely. But if you're a mid-market company trying to build, a nose spray bottle or something, you're probably not going to get the best of the best in China. Right. And so this framework is something one of my board directors said to me in my first startup after my Deloitte days. We were talking about using the Indian guys, and he's like, cost, productivity, overhead, and I've just really latched onto that ever since. So I could go on and on about this, but I'll stop there and ask for some direction from you. Which way?
Yeah, no, fair enough. So tell me about that must have been the first example that you gave, working with the team in India when you were at Deloitte. Incredible productivity, but it sounds like there was almost a distance between you leading them and them as being a part of the team that you were developing. Yeah. It was almost like a brick wall. Did that come down at any point, or was it always?
No, and I will tell you this much: I still struggle with this today. Especially in mid-market companies. So we serve mid-market at any APIWorkx. So most of our customers are distributors, manufacturers, people who, maybe family-owned businesses, people who've done things the same way for many years. They're very successful. Some of them $500 million, but, Annie Mae in the back does accounting, right? And so the idea of outsourcing, AP or AR to some foreign land just doesn't really work, and it's the culture challenge is very real to this day, and it's something that you have to constantly work on. While we're talking about that, I'll tell a story about the Philippines. I owned a business in the Philippines for 10 years, and we did tech support and software development there. And as I was building this team, we built it from like 5 core people up to about 60 at its height. So not large, but enough to have challenges. I did my classic American thing. I called the team together and got up on the whiteboard and said, "Hey guys, here's what we got on our agenda for this year. What do we want? How do we want to do this?" And I'm looking for input, right?
Right.
Blank stares. Absolute blank stares. And then I was like, well, okay, so one of the guys there, I won't tell you his name because he might watch this. I was like, hey, what'd you do today? I said, no. He's like, oh, I worked on the disaster recovery, and I did the AWS backups, and I did the blah 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 blah. I'm like, oh, that's great. So why is that important? And what I discovered, and they were always call me Sir Charlie, right? I was like, don't call me Sir Charlie. I'm just Charlie. No, yes, sir, Charlie, sir, Charlie. And it was just, I found it kind of annoying, but that's just me being an American. What I realized was, in the Philippines, as an example, the culture is very hierarchical. I was the senior figure. I was a senior executive. Senior executives don't engage with, the townspeople, if you will. And it's also very, much of an island mentality, meaning they there's very much a mindset that we're going to work together as a team, and individuals aren't going to stand out as much, but the whole team. If somebody's sort of having problems, they're going to bring that person along. And whereas in the US, if somebody falls behind, leave them behind. Right. So that created just challenges in terms of managing them. And not only throw that on top of the work in India, very hierarchical, very deferent to the senior guy, very deferent to me as the customer. And those create friction that creates, communication friction because of the hierarchy, and you don't always get all the information you need going up and down that. Now, I'll contrast that with some guys in Argentina I'm working with right now. They'll tell me anything. Anybody in the team will tell me anything because Argentina, most of those guys came from Italy.
Right.
So, yeah, there you go. Just some examples there, Kevin. So
I've always found this fascinating. Because part of it is coming to the US from the UK, right? There's obviously differences in terms of norms of the way that you communicate and the hierarchical or the non-hierarchical nature, right? And how you give feedback.
Yeah.
I love there's a book called The Culture Map, which you may have read. It talks about these variances, right? And the difference between high context and low context. And I've always found that incredibly helpful because, in the US, it's much more just, I'm going to tell it exactly as it is, and I expect it to come exactly back, right? And then you get to other cultures where, we're just going to provide, it's more high context. So I'm going to provide kind of the around, and you have to interpret that from me, right? So in those situations outside of Argentina, did you ever get to a point where you felt like you'd kind of gone through and they were interacting with you more as one group, or did it always remain that way?
It took time, and it took a lot of trips over to build trust. Specifically in the Philippines, I took my wife over one time. We took the crew out to a beach, had a beach party. No one would talk to my poor wife. They were all terrified of her. And she's the sweetest person ever.
Yes.
Right. And
right.
She just wanted to meet people and talk to them. One little over the testers befriended her, and she just still follows her on Facebook and stuff. But it's like, that's very American thing. It's like, we all view each other kind of as equals, and that was the problem there. I will tell you a funny story. It wasn't funny at the time about the UK, and at the time I was running services for an oil and gas, actually just say energy trading software company, a very successful company, and I had a problem client in the UK that traded sugar of all things, and client was the project was falling behind, and if you've done software implementations enough, you just kind of know how to drill in, and a lot of times the customer won't make decisions. They don't know how to make decisions. Right. They hey, how do you have an opportunity, for example, to do this a totally different way? How do you do it? Blah blah blah. Well, my team was there, trying to get this company that had been around for 100 years, trading sugar, to, think this way and do this thing. And the project's getting more and more behind, and further delays, and the client's getting frustrated. And me and my dumb American centric thinking think, well, I'm just going to go up there and I'm going to talk to the managing director and tell him that, change is part of the process, and explain it to him that change, he's got to change, and he's got to lead his team to change, and et cetera, et cetera. And I've had that conversation 100 times in the US.
Right.
In the US, I got thrown out of his office.
Oh, wow.
He said, don't ever let that smug American back in here again. And what I learned was he was, the head, the head managing director.
Yeah.
He just kind of fell in with him. I brought him back from a Friday afternoon lunch where he was probably had 2 martinis or 3 martinis under his belt. And, here I was this, arrogant American telling him how to run his business, and it did not go well. So I learned a lot from that. I actually wrote a blog article on that experience one time, but the CEO of the company I was working with, I went in and told him, I got thrown out of one of your customers today. And he just started laughing at me, and he said, well, what'd you learn? I said, well, a lot, but yeah. So it's just the understanding where these people are coming from.
Right.
Such a huge thing. Had a similar sort of faux pas I made, and I've done a lot of good things too. I'm just telling you my bad things, but I made a similar.
We should get to the good things as well, Charlie. I mean, I don't think we want people.
Well, okay, no, I'll tell you 2 stories. The first one is I was negotiating a contract with Danish Oil and Natural Gas.
Mm-hmm.
So love the Danes, love, love the Vikings, love me some Vikings. We go in to negotiate this contract, and it's literally, a boardroom of very serious shipbuilders staring at me,
Yeah.
every detail. I mean, they're going line by line through the detail. And the way I handled it was, well, okay, let's talk about this risk that you're asking about this clause because it addresses a risk on our side. You don't like it because it transfers that risk to you. Let's talk about this. And it was a very good interaction. I mean, the CFO of this company was with me, and we ended up going back and forth enough, and we were getting enough of what we want. And I said, okay, I'm gonna have to go think about that. And we would go walk on the beach and get a coffee, and then come back and go, okay, we thought about it. Yeah, we can go forward. So 2 days of this was exhausting, and we signed the deal, all done. The guy in charge of the projects invites me to this super fancy place in Copenhagen. And he says, Sam, he goes, I just really appreciate you through this process. You are not like other Americans. I said, well, thank you very much. And he said, we just didn't know what to expect. And, blah, blah, blah. But that approach, that very collaborative approach, in my experience, has been the most effective, trying to understand where the other party is coming from and try to be in the middle. And that's negotiation 101, right? But it does work globally in certain cultures. I tried that approach in Singapore with a Chinese lawyer, and it did not work.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah, there are definitely differences. So when you given this vast experience that you had, when you came to founding APIWorkx and getting started, how did that experience inform the way that you wanted to build your team with your new company?
I was actually a bit lazy about how I did it this time, because I was, and it was not purposeful, to be honest. I had a team and a guy that I knew and trusted for previous relationships, and we handshook things, and that worked for a while. And as the business grew and so on, we ultimately we're getting disagreements about payments and monies and responsibilities. Things, so I actually put things into a firm agreement. But for me, the relationship, like I tell people, I'm like, I figured out 1,000 ways to break a contract. Easy to break a contract. I've never figured out how to break a handshake. Okay. That's a very, not just American, but probably a more Texan point of view than others.
Yeah.
It does translate, right?
It does.
Or you say, you know what? I know what the contract says, but this isn't working for me. It's not working for you. Let's talk.
Right.
And so I actually started with the handshake, and ultimately, pretty quickly within a couple of years, started having conflicts, and we codified it. And then now we still have conflicts every once in a while, and we handshake on top of the contract. Through that, when at that same software company, I got to tell you, we were working with the largest oil company in the world, that shall go unnamed, and the CEO, or not the CEO, but the head of this project, $50 million initiative. We're doing this work, things going in the ditch, right? And everybody, we just got everybody together, got everybody in the ditch, their team, our team, pulled it out. Same thing, that client came to me later and said, I appreciate that y'all didn't start pointing fingers, and we just it was in the ditch, and we all just got in and we pulled it out. So I don't know if that helps, but that whole idea of your word does really mean something. And
it does.
And I went to SMU a while back, and with the District Export Council, which is part of Department of Commerce that I do work with.
Right.
And we were talking to these young students about what skills do you need to do business internationally and to build teams. And this is all about building teams, right? So he said, Charlie, what's the biggest skill? And I thought about it a while, and I said, you know what? You really need to be able to hold your liquor. And he's like, "Hey, what are you, this is a school." I said, "It's SMU. It's okay." And I said, "What I mean is your relationships, when you build a global team, when you start working with a partner overseas,
Right.
you're going to go to their homes. You're going to meet their families. This guy in India, great guy, I met his family.
Mm-hmm.
When I worked in Mexico, the family would take me to dinner, when I was
Yeah.
there. So, and then they get, a lot of this is done over meals, in social environments, and I'm only halfway joking about holding your liquor, but it's yeah.
Oh, it's definitely true. When I was at TDS, we were opening up a location like, an interior town, an interior city in China called Wuhan. This is like 2007. Nobody had heard of Wuhan.
Everybody knows Wuhan now.
Everybody now.
Yeah.
And we met with the mayor of the city and the party representative. And after that initial meeting, we then went to lunch, and lunch was very much going down, right? I mean, it was for me, it was all of those years of doing tequila shots at Texas Longhorn football games, which actually stood me in great stead.
That's some great training. Yeah, we didn't do that. We don't do this.
Clearly not. But it very much was that was their way of kind of bringing you in, or at least bringing you in, maybe testing you a little bit as well, right?
Well, and so this applies with your teams too, right? I'm saying this like, the culture challenge is an ongoing and constant struggle. Our team now, we try to do L10s every week with, and for people who aren't aware, L10 is one of the meetings that's specified in EOS, which is the Entrepreneurial Operating System, which is Gino Wickman's book, Traction. And so a lot of people, Kevin and I know through EO, use that. But if for no other reason, it gets everybody on the same page, sharing personal wins, and it reduces these barriers. And I find when you don't have that, little things add up, and they add up, and they add up, and so I don't even know what the question was.
And you never quite know what other people are dealing with, and so having those wins, I think, is a great way, like you say, of just kind of breaking down the walls. So for your team today, where is your team? Where are they around the world?
Okay, so we were, I've got one guy in the UK, and I actually recruited him over a long night at a bar,
Okay,
pub, I guess, and flew there, flew back, and whatever. He's a great member of the team. So we've got a UK culture. I have Austin, Texas. We've got two guys in Austin and several other people kind of scattered throughout the US. We have people in the Philippines, people in India, and now we have people in Argentina. So it's
what a fantastic mix.
Yeah, well, and the culture thing, every day we run into something, right? And so just some of the funny little sayings that comes out of our UK guy's mouth. It's just funny.
Yes, we collect them.
Yes, yeah, but no, we're and we'll continue being global, right? And now I will tell you something we were talking about on dinner the other night was I'm feeling some pressure's the wrong word, but I'd just say some maybe some winds of change in the mindset in the US towards deglobalization, right? There's a lot of frustration in IT people who are overseas, especially support people, call center people. There's a lot of pushback. I don't know how that relates to the political landscape here, but I don't know any of that. But what I do know is the number of customers that I have who complain about talking to someone from India or with an accent on their call is has increased dramatically in the last couple of years. And
Oh, interesting.
and it's almost bigoted, for lack of a better word. So I do think we're going to be facing some social pressure on that. At the same time, you go back and you look at cost, productivity, and time frame, cost, productivity, and overhead, right? And you think, okay, I've got to get a customer service agent to do highly complex technical support stuff, right?
Right.
Talking to some maybe not so sophisticated customer on the phone. And you're going to funnel them to somebody in the Philippines or to India or to Argentina that they may not have it. They may have perfect English, but there's going to be an added, layer there. And now the way salaries have started to level out, let's just say a developer in India, by the time you throw in overheads on it, it's going to cost X amount, right? It's actually going to be pretty close to what it costs for a developer in the US. Or developers probably not, but some skills for sure, right? So if you layer in the productivity, I talk about going to LA, Lower Alabama, or Louisiana, right? And starting to pick up people in the remote areas of those states, and you apply the same cost, productivity, and overhead equation to them, it starts to look pretty good, right?
Right.
Because you've got the time frame efficiencies, because I've got a kind of a productivity problem with our Indian team because they go to bed at 10:30 in the morning.
Right.
And
just the communication back and forth, right?
Just the communication.
More challenging.
And now that's improved dramatically with Argentina, right?
Right.
But there's still a little bit of a barrier there, and I don't know. I've been wrong about everything, but at some point in my life, but I'm feeling that this is a trend that could be coming, is some deglobalization around workforce teams.
Yeah,
actually start looking at the math of it, it starts to make sense.
Yeah, there's definitely been. I mean, when you talked about starting 30 some years ago with this, I mean, my experience started 20 some years ago, and the productivity piece was real, right? It was a third of the cost at a raw level, but you weren't expecting to get 100% out of this person the same way that you would get somebody onshore, but it still worked, right? And I do think that part of the shift over the last 20 some years has been that there's a relatively similar expectation now. If you're going to be a part of my team, then you're going to be a part of my team for all the positives and the rights and the responsibilities that come along with that. So
I was just going to say, go ahead.
Well,
No. Well, I was just going to say something to consider as well that we haven't talked about is geopolitical risk in these countries, right? So, for example, not too many years ago, people were outsourcing development in China, right? Ukraine, I had, half a dozen people in Ukraine at one point, and these poor guys, many of them had their homes bombed, and they ran down and set up Starlinks and got a generator in a warehouse, and were working for us with a generator and Starlink in a warehouse, right? But he wants that, right? Now, I didn't want to fire him because it was just a horrible situation after the invasion. But who would have thought that Russia would really invade the Ukraine, right? Or Ukraine, right? And I thought, well, here we are, right? And even the geopolitical changes we've seen in, just across Asia, right? So some of these places, there's a lot of geopolitical risks you got to look at. The other area that I think is often overlooked, a lot of people will go, oh, let's look at Argentina, let's look at Ecuador, let's look at Costa Rica, is you have to look at the quality of candidates in those pools, right? So I originally thought Costa Rica would be great. Well, I would love to have a small team in Costa Rica, right? Well, English is a problem generally. Schools are not nearly as technically oriented. Had the same problem in Mexico, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
And the cost productivity overhead things stopped working. And you kind of
Mm-hmm.
look at how many, let's just take programmers, for example, right? Okay. How many programmers, Java programmers, say, do you think there are in Costa Rica?
Right.
A few hundred, maybe.
Right.
Right. How many do you think there are in India?
More than a couple of hundred?
More than a couple hundred. Yeah. It's sort of an endless supply, right? So got all these factors to figure out, and it's and what's right for your company, especially if you're a mid-market company. You're not used to providing that structure and the overhead. It
Right.
can be oftentimes it leads to a failed effort to go global in terms of
Yeah, and that issue of if I've got one or two people, then that's one thing. But if I'm building a team and I'm building it across multiple countries, there's that overhead piece of it becomes real very quickly.
100%. Yeah, 100%. So yeah, it's changed a lot in the last 20 or 30, 25 years.
Yeah.
Because the costs have gone up, productivity has gone down, and the risks seem bigger now than they were.
Yeah.
So you also got.
Let me ask you this. Oh, go on.
No, I was going to bring up a whole new point, but go ahead.
Well, I was just going to, we're about 30 minutes in, and so what I was thinking was, if I was to put a bow on this, Charlie, and say, what have you learned over the last 30 years? Where if you were to go back and you would say, I would do that absolutely earlier on, or I wouldn't do that. What's the biggest learning that you've had in working with global teams over the last quarter century?
Again, realize that my lens here is IT and IT services. So
Right.
I assume that these same ideas would apply in manufacturing or other service-based businesses. Law architects I know are doing a lot of this stuff, but I'm not sure because that's not my filter. But my number one sort of feeling at this point is never turn over direct customer contact to a team that is not 100% culturally aligned. For B2B, right? I mean, B2C is probably the same way too, when I think about it, because I get frustrated when I call T-Mobile and talking to somebody who knows where they are. But that US based, you're one of us kind of experiences, implementation people, client managers, salespeople, that you have to own that, and it has to be part of your culture. It's very hard to get all of the culture pushed out. No, so that's number one. And I probably got a whole bunch more, but yeah, just be ready to spend time and energy on it. I guess it's not as simple as it sounds.
Maybe the second and third one are ones we should put down for our next podcast. So
yes, there you go.
I just wanted to thank you, Charlie, for your time. I always learn from when we chat, and this has given me some more food for thought as well. The comments about I know 1,000 ways how to break a contract, and I've not worked out how to break a handshake, I think is one of the things that I will take with me. So thanks very much for your time.
You bet, buddy. Good to see you.
You as well.
Thanks for tuning in to the Mid-Market Edge podcast. For more information, visit the Mid-Market Edge website at midmarketedge.com. Details are in the show notes. Remember to subscribe and like the show so you'll never miss an episode. And until next time, keep building your edge in the mid-market.